How we doing, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast. Today we're going to be speaking on LeBron James' pursuit of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for the all-time NBA scoring lead. We're going to speak on two new NFL hires in Sean Payton and DeMeco Ryans, two completely different histories behind the coaches, one getting their first gig and one having a very decorated career in New Orleans previously to the new stops they're making. And we're going to speak on the futures of the three big chips in the NFL offseason at the quarterback position. Going to start it here with my New York Knicks, yet another disappointing loss at home. Knicks home woes continue, and LeBron James, as I already stated, is closing in on Kareem. Lakers with a 6-point overtime victory in the Garden. I'm going to start with the Knicks briefly. As a fan, just incredibly disappointing. This is a team that owns the second best record in the Eastern Conference on the road, but is 2 games under 500 at home. And it just speaks volumes to their mediocre record of only 27-25. When you look at a team that has a great road record, you expect that they'll be atop the conference. Knicks, this entire season, going back to even last year, complete Jekyll and Hyde act. Big wins last week over the Cleveland Cavaliers and the NBA's best team, the Boston Celtics, on the road. They were able to beat Boston on the road. But it's been a legitimate struggle for the Knicks at home. I'm not sure what it truly is. I've had friends of the show speak to me about how Madison Square Garden being the Mecca, how so many players really get revved up to play in the Garden. And maybe the Garden has not necessarily been the toughest place to play on the road. It's almost more like, I guess, like with Cowboy fans, some would say that AT&T doesn't have like the same road disadvantage that, say, Texas Stadium has. I do believe that to a level there could be some validity to that when speaking about the New York Knicks. But disappointing because the Lakers are not having a good season. They're going to be desperately trying to get into the play-in game. One would think that maybe at the deadline they strike a deal to try to give themselves a little bit of a chance for a playoff push. Switching it over to LeBron James, like him or not, one thing that cannot be denied is that 2 decades in the NBA, this is 19th year, he's still playing at a very high level. The Lakers may not be that good, but LeBron playing at the level he is at his age is something to be appreciated, whether you like him or not. According to him, catching Jabbar is not his main motivation. Obviously, you're talking about a man who's played in 10 NBA finals, and he's won 4 of them. At this juncture of LeBron's career, I think he is really keeping an eye out to see where his son Bronny ends up going to college, and ultimately, if he can facilitate a deal to play with his son, I would assume at least for a year or 2. I think at this juncture of LeBron's career, that's ultimately what he is interested in. Father and son playing on the same team has never happened in the NBA. That would be different. It has happened in baseball with Ken Griffey Jr. and his father with the Seattle Mariners. But quite frankly, when I look at both these teams, the Lakers and Knicks, I think this is what you're going to see. A lot of inconsistencies on both teams. Losing games, they should win. Sometimes winning games, they should lose. The Knicks' Waterloo this year has been closing out games in the fourth quarter. Even when they win, it's always an uncomfortable kind of situation because of their inability to close out games in the fourth quarter. Lakers have experienced similar fate this year. But I do believe that both these teams will be in the mix for the play-in tournament. Knicks have a little bit of a better chance getting into the 6. But, the East is loaded with talent, and it's going to be tough for the Knicks to avoid the play-in situation if they continue to be this inconsistent. I know during the offseason, a lot of Knicks fans were upset with the franchise not taking the necessary steps, even if it would have been costly to get Donovan Mitchell. When I look at this current Knicks roster, yeah, Jalen Brunson's been a boss. Julius Randle, RJ Barrett, nice little three stars. or at least two, and one very good player. But I do believe that if the Knicks would have taken the leap for Donovan Mitchell, quite frankly, it could have facilitated a championship or two. And I do believe that with the Knicks, that just hasn't been the bigger priority. I've been screaming for years that I want James Dolan to sell the team. We'll see where it goes. And now with the new controversy about possibly banning alcohol at the Garden, he's not really going out of his way to appease any Knicks fans. And, you know, you look at some of the actions in the past with not recognizing Patrick Ewing coming through security, kicking out Charles Oakley. James Dolan's got to go. As for the Lakers, I do believe LeBron will finish his career there. He's only 89 points shy of catching Kareem Abdul-Jabbar now, who played for two teams, but, you know, predominantly did his winning with the Lakers. So it will be interesting to see how the NBA presents that as it gets closer. I am curious to see if Kareem Abdul-Jabbar will be in the house. He's been, for the most part, out of the public eye post-career, but this is a monumental feat that can happen, and we'll see what happens with it. Moving it over to the NFL, Sean Payton, who spent his last season with the Fox crew, is back in the league after a one-year hiatus. The Denver Broncos hiring him, and I do beg to question how expensive and how costly is this for the Denver Broncos. Broncos coming off a very disappointing 2022 season, only going 5-12. They gave up a ton of resources to bring in former Super Bowl winning quarterback Russell Wilson. Year one did not work out. I think the motivation behind bringing in Payton is that he helped revitalize the career of Drew Brees when many people gave up on him, particularly the Brees' previous team, the Chargers, and others around the league. He did a hell of a job with Brees. He and his coaching staffs put together some good defenses and, of course, winning the lone Super Bowl for New Orleans back in 2009. But for Denver fans, I'm just going to say it clearly. I think this is going to take time because although you finished in the bottom part of the NFL, they don't get that first-round pick based on record because that belongs to the Seattle Seahawks after the Wilson trade. And they also miss out on another first-round pick, which was going to be granted from the Bradley Chubb trade because now the New Orleans Saints own that. No pick in the second round. So for Denver, incredibly costly for a guy who, yes, I get it, he coaches, but he's not an actual player. It's a steep price to pay. And I do believe that even going back to last year, the real target that Denver was hoping for was Aaron Rodgers. I do think that last year Denver wanted to facilitate a trade for Rodgers. Ultimately, I think Wilson was more like a consolation prize. As far as this coaching search goes, they were pretty hot for Harbaugh from Michigan. They even made a second trip after he originally had told the organization no. And I do believe that this is to a level settling for Sean Payton. No offense to him. He's been a great coach, taking the Saints to 7 division titles in over the course of 9 seasons there. But I just don't believe that you're going to see results right away. It's hard to forecast the future and say if he could truly change this team and change their fortunes. Denver does have some good pieces. You know, they have a pretty good defense. Offensively, they were literally the worst. So it will be interesting to see how Sean Payton navigates around that. And obviously, whenever you take over a new program, you have a lot of tough decisions to make. Now, we're going to talk about bad, and now we're going to bring it to damn near the worst. D'Amico Ryans, who did a phenomenal job over the last few years with the 49ers, having their defense finish in the top 3 in multiple years. He gets his first crack at head coaching. But I will ask, is Houston the right choice for him? Given the Texans' reputation for not having a lot of patience with coaches, I also think this is a trend of franchises who just don't do very well. I think bad franchises normally pull the carpet out from under coaches' legs a little too soon. I understand D'Amico's motivation for taking the job. It is a head coaching job. Personally, I didn't like the way that the Houston Texans treated Lovie Smith towards the end of his tenure there. I think for a bad team, he had them playing very hard against quality teams at the end of the year. My biggest hope for D'Amico Ryans, being that this is a complete rebuild, is that the Houston Texans organization gives him the adequate amount of time to get this thing right. Bill O'Brien did a hell of a job of really tearing down this organization and just making some questionable decisions, whether it was the situation with D-Hop. There's a litany of moves that this organization made that were real head scratchers prior to what we saw this last season and what's going to be coming in the immediate future. But I do believe that if this is a patient organization, D'Amico Ryans will be able to put together his staff. A lot of holes on this team, but one would suggest that the first move that this team needs to make is at the quarterback position. I noticed on social media, a lot of Houston Texans fans were losing it, that they won their final game and actually pushed themselves out of the one spot. Given that Chicago does not need a quarterback, I don't believe that will affect Houston in that regard. Chicago could play it a couple of different ways. They can probably trade back that number one pick for a king's ransom, or they can make a play on somebody that they believe they need. But if Houston is interested in getting a quarterback, they should be able to get their quarterback of choice at the 2 pick. But an uphill battle for sure. Similarly, eerily reminds me of when they first came into the league and drafted David Carr. That is the kind of uphill battle that this Texans team is going to be in for the foreseeable future. But I do wish D'Amico Ryans well. I think he's a hell of a coach, and I think he's a guy that understands what it takes to win. But in order to do that, he's going to have the full confidence of his employers, and I hope they give him the most fair chance. And, like anything else, I spoke about this off air with some of my friends. I do believe that with the issues with minority head coaching in the NFL, this is a grand opportunity for Houston to lead the way and to really give D'Amico Ryans his time. I've stated it in the past that I feel that mediocre white coaches have been granted a little more patience than maybe black coaches that might struggle in the beginning, or maybe even black coaches that are winning. You take a guy like a Brian Flores, that was a head scratcher to say the least, his firing. You even look at Steve Wilkes in Carolina. In my opinion, Frank Reich's a good coach, but I do believe that Wilkes had the locker room, and it is very difficult to take over on an interim level and get the guys to really buy into what you're selling. Not pertaining to a black coach, but also something that I felt was unjust is what happened in Vegas when we're talking about Rich Bisaccia getting replaced for Josh McDaniels after he took the Raiders to the playoffs after the tragic Henry Ruggs vehicular homicide situation, as well as everything that came from the John Gruden emails. And I do believe that it would be crazy if a guy like Jeff Saturday, say for instance, gets retained by Indy, but yet you got a guy like Bisaccia who didn't hold on to his job. And there's been other cases like a Steve Wilkes, even Lovie Smith for that matter. But I do think D'Amico Ryans is the right choice. I always saw Lovie as a placeholder, not that it was fair, but I kind of viewed that situation as such. 2023 around the corner after this year, the new NFL season, it just keeps going. But I did get a lot of feedback from some of the followers of my show. And this is going to be a huge topic constantly that you're going to be hearing about even in the NFL offseason while we're covering basketball, while we're covering baseball. AR-12, TB-12, and Lamar Jackson, where will they play in 2023? I'm going to start first with Aaron Rodgers, the man that Sean Payton is replacing. Nathaniel Hackett is in the New York Jets organization now. there is a connection there with Aaron Rodgers. Given Rodgers' age, I have stated on my show recently that I do believe that the New York Jets are a terrific fit for Aaron Rodgers. They certainly have a top-tier defense. Breece Hall was having a Rookie of the Year campaign prior to getting injured in late October. Sauce Gardner, as I stated on the defense, probably the best cover corner already, and it's only going to be his sophomore year going into the NFL. And I also believe that Aaron Rodgers gets an upgrade on receivers should he play with the Jets. The Jets hold up going back to even the Rex Ryan era. When I'm talking like right after Brett Favre leaving, I believe that quarterback has been their holdup, going back to Mark Sanchez. After him, Geno Smith. Most recently, the draft pick, Zach Wilson, which obviously hasn't panned out. The Jets have deployed 3 different quarterbacks this year, and no one truly got really good results. Mike White was the best of 3 very mediocre or possibly bad quarterbacks. But I do believe that if the Jets make this move, they can legitimately threaten Buffalo to take over that division as well as be a legitimate contender for a Super Bowl. And you can't really mention Super Bowls without TB12. The man has won more than anyone else. Coming off on some levels of, if you look at his trading card, you'd be like, oh, he had an okay year. Look at the stats. Bottom line is that I think Tom Brady's at a point in his career where he needs to be surrounded by top-tier talent in order to succeed. I still think the man can play, but when I saw what Tampa has lost over the course of the last year going into this particular one, you take JPP, big Super Bowl contributor, he went to the Ravens. Rob Gronkowski retired. Antonio Brown imploded in MetLife Stadium against the Jets. He literally just walked off. Ndamukong Suh's currently an Eagle, but at year's start, he was a free agent. He was not retained. Take into account the injuries on the O-line, Tom Brady's lack of mobility. The interior of Tampa's O-line made Brady very vulnerable this year. And the Tampa offense was very stale and very predictable during the course of the year. Recently firing Byron Leftwich, I do believe, to a level that is possibly a desperation move to see if that would appease Brady to stay. This is a team that had coaching turnover where Bruce Arians won upstairs. Todd Bowles, who I do think highly of as a defensive coordinator, I don't view him in the same light as a quality head coach. I would say that there is a possibility that Brady could return to Tampa if he wants to continue to play and if some of his other options dry out. But with the injury to Brock Purdy, I do have to think that at minimum there is at least a curiosity from the San Francisco 49ers to see if they could facilitate a deal for Tom Brady. Obviously, he has a loaded team in San Francisco and brings, a mountain of in-game playoff experience, which could be valuable to a team that has been so close to the Super Bowl the last few years. If they were to go that route, I don't necessarily think that signals the end of Brock Purdy's run there. I think it could be temporarily him getting an education from Tom Brady. Other suitors that might make sense. You got to consider New England because of his history there. At his age, I don't necessarily think that he wants to play in that Northeast weather anymore, so I would personally not expect him to go back to the New England Patriots. And because of the Josh McDaniels connection in Vegas, I do believe that you have to consider them as a player. But when I look around the league and I look around where does this make sense, I wouldn't mention the Jets. I really think they're hot for Rodgers. I think that's going to happen. We'll see. And the Dolphins most recently said they're not going to pursue him, that they are committed to Tua. The Dolphins have not exactly been known for their honesty, whether it's talking about concussions or a lot of other things that were pretty sketchy with that organization. But I wouldn't rule out Brady to the Dolphins just yet. I don't believe everything that comes out of Stephen Ross's mouth. But from what I've seen, I do believe that there is a legitimate possibility. Breaking news, Tom Brady on social media is retiring. This from ESPN. Wow. Okay, so we're going to I guess we're going to leave the Tom Brady talk alone. He has just retired. For the second time in 2 years, he has announced his retirement on my birthday. It's my birthday today, just to let you guys know. Wow, this is huge news. Tom Brady retiring. Okay, we're going to just move that along to Lamar Jackson. Wow, little surprised right here, a little crazy. Definitely going to have to speak on him possibly as early as today. Congrats to Tom Brady on a phenomenal career. Got to divert this for a second. Wow, Tom Brady retired. I guess he really realized that this was it. I'm happy for him. I think it's best to retire when you still have some of your playing dignity. I don't think too many people want to remember him as a mediocre quarterback or as a guy who's not playing at his highest potential. I also think that no one wants to see this guy, God forbid, really get hurt. I think he's making the proper decision here. I am a little surprised because, given the man's stubbornness, it's hard to ever believe that he was truly going to retire. But Tom Brady has retired. Oh, thank you, Coco. Appreciate that. How you doing? I'm going to try to make it to your show tonight. Depends on how early I get out of work. But appreciate that. Thank you so much. Wow, Tom Brady retired. I'm going to speak briefly on Tom Brady. I want to talk about some of his uphill battles that he overcame to be the player he was, and talk about his legacy some. I didn't expect that I'd be doing a Tom Brady send-off on the show, but it's breaking news, so we got to do that. First and foremost, being picked in the 6th round, phenomenal what the man accomplished. I saw an evolution in his game over the years. I believe when the New England Patriots originally drafted him, he was he was a backup to Drew Bledsoe, who was the franchise quarterback. I believe that once Bledsoe got injured early on in Brady's career, given the fact that the backbone of that team was their defense. Yeah, Coco, I'm with you. He should definitely retire. Absolutely. He was a game manager during the first part of their dynasty, winning 3 and 4 years. I believe that where his career really took off was during the years where the Patriots weren't winning championships. They had the better part of a decade run in between the 6 rings, 3 early, 3 at the tail end. But that's where I really believe Brady became the quarterback that he was. And to his credit, with the exception of playing with the great Randy Moss for a limited time, Brady never truly had like that all-world number one like Payton had in a Marvin Harrison. Or even maybe somewhere in between there, you could even say like a McNabb or a Romo had with a T.O., possibly on a smaller level like Eli had with a Plaxico Burress. These are all players that were playing during that time. That's why I mentioned these guys. Ocho Cinco played with Palmer, another great receiver there. There's always been a debate about Bill and Tom, who could win without one another, who's more important to the Patriot legacy, the dynasty. I never really cared for that part of the argument because I believe that both of them were so instrumental in what the Patriots did. Bill Belichick constantly provided Tom Brady with excellent defenses, and Tom Brady constantly provided Bill Belichick with just clutch play. A lot of people have tried to tear down Tom Brady, take away some of his accomplishments, but at the end of the day, the greatest winner in the history of the NFL at the quarterback position, people will always debate about who's truly the GOAT, what the criteria is to be the GOAT. But one thing I will not debate is Tom Brady's greatness. I think a defining moment in his career, with the exception of coming back from the knee injury, was the year before that. Having an undefeated season, losing to my New York Giants on the grandest stage. I think it really shows his true toughness to come back from a loss like that and to be even better. I don't think too many would be able to respond the way he did. After that Giants Super Bowl loss, he still reeled off 4 more, not to mention He did lose twice to the Giants during that run. Oddly enough, I think his best Super Bowl may have very well been one that he lost. Philadelphia Eagles are playing in the Super Bowl in a couple of weeks. Tom Brady was on the losing side of Philadelphia's very first Super Bowl. No fault of his own. In my opinion, the greatest performance by a losing quarterback in Super Bowl history. I will not make fun of him for not catching a pass on the Philly special. I thought it was comical that they had the audacity to run that play. As many of people know, he has gone through a divorce, a painful one at that. I imagine no divorce could be easy for anyone. But I did notice something in Brady this year that I never saw before, and it was somebody who looked tired and just fed up of what the daily grind of playing in the NFL brings. I believe that it was rather visible this past year. Phenomenal career. I don't see how anyone in the history of this game will ever be able to duplicate the winning that this man did. I think he's won so much that he's actually, I would say, he's made it look almost easy. And I think it's something that we as fans should not take for granted, because you look at some great quarterbacks that only have one, some great quarterbacks that only have two. And I think it puts in perspective how hard it is to win. Were it not for the Manning brothers, this guy possibly has 11 rings, so I wish him well in his retirement. And I hope he has a good transition, because a lot of guys have a tough transition after playing the game at such a high level for so long. But Tom Brady will be going to Fox, to my understanding. He has a nice deal set up for him there. So football fans will still be able to see him. I'm expecting a call from a friend of the show, recently suspended Brett Bandick. We'll figure out a way to bring Brett back. He's got some work he's got to do in between that I talk to them off air. But huge Patriot fan, Brett, I'm sure that he's got mixed feelings on this. A year ago, we did a Tom Brady tribute on my birthday when he retired the last time. This time, I'm willing to bet it's for real. I think it's funny that he announced it on the same day. Back to this topic. We can erase TB12 from this. Lamar Jackson. I spoke on this amongst some friends that the San Francisco 49ers can also be an ideal destination for him. Financially, it's going to take the 49ers some maneuvering to get this done. It may even take trading actual players, because they may not have the necessary cap space. But one thing that's been proven to me over time in every offseason is if an organization wants a player, they're going to get him no matter what, and they're going to find a way to do it. And again, it comes down to this Brock Purdy injury. And if the 49ers believe that they can move on with Trey Lance, but he probably is not going to be ready in the beginning of the year either. Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be approaching free agency. So this is definitely an in limbo situation for the 49ers. And with Brady announcing his retirement just now, I do believe that that's one of the options that has fell off their board. Lamar also could make sense in Atlanta, given their situation. They did draft Desmond Ridder. That really depends on what they think. I mean, the Arizona Cardinals drafted Josh Rosen and moved on from him very quickly. So drafting a quarterback high doesn't necessarily guarantee that you're going to keep him. The Jets are in a similar situation. I would keep my eye out to see if the 49ers can make some moves financially to get this done, because I do believe that the kind of style of offense that Kyle Shanahan likes to run, I almost feel that it would be to a level kind of like a wing T kind of deal. But I do believe that this is something that could happen, and I would suggest we keep our eyes on that to see how it goes. That's all I got for today. I am a little bit in shock that Tom Brady just retired. I did not expect to read that coming across my phone as I did this show. Kind of altered the direction of this. But I'm also happy I was doing the show when I found this out. I'm going to get with the guys, and I think we're going to definitely, on some level, do something to honor Tom Brady, the greatest winner of the NFL at the quarterback position, only retires once, twice in this case. But definitely something that we're going to hit on. We have an all-time franchises show that we're going to be doing the rankings of, in our opinions. We did this as a panel, the top 10 franchises in league history from the beginning to the current day. Obviously, we have a big Super Bowl coming up. We're going to be honing in on that. And we're also going to do an awards show for the NFL and give our 2 cents about who should be taking home what awards. Until next time, I am Richie, and I greatly appreciate you guys hanging with me this morning. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, the Richie Hicks Sports Podcast. Take it easy, guys, and have a great day.